Hello everyone, and welcome to another very nice game from the round 4 of the Sunway Sitges tournament. Someone in the comment section suggested that it's actually pronounced Sunway Sitges tournament, so if that's the case, welcome to another very nice game from round 4 of the Sunway Sitges tournament. It's a game between Spanish Grandmaster Alvar Alonso Rosell and Maxime Lagarde, a Grandmaster from France, and you don't want to mistake him for Maxime Lagarde of France. I know it's a silly thing to mention, but if you're new to chess and if you perhaps don't yet know who everyone is, then it might happen to you to mistake these two gentlemen. And even when I search for a nice photo of him, if you just Google Maxime Lagarde, you will even have a couple of photos of Maxime Lagarde popping out. And also, before we check out the actual game, I wanted to mention that well, there is this rap song, and Magnus Carlsen takes part in this song. He has a short part, maybe 40 seconds, where he raps out his part in Norwegian. So I will put a link to that song in the description below. Feel free to check it out. The entire song is in Norwegian. The quote above the board is also a part of the song. So do check it out. The timestamp for Magnus's part is, I think, 6 minutes and 20 seconds. But if you understand Norwegian, you're welcome to check out the entire song as well. So far, it only has some 3,000 views, so feel free to, check it out, comment, like, and whatnot. So getting back to our game, it might be weird to be showing a game from round 4 as already round 10 has finished, but I do have a very nice reason for this, and we are going to get back to that at the end of the game. Alvar Alonso Rosell has the white pieces, and he opens with d4, and it's really going to be really a wonderful game. Knight to f6, we have knight to f3, sorry about that. G6, G3, and bishop to G7. So we have the Indian game on the board. Bishop to G2, both players fianchetto the kingside bishops. We have castles, and D6. We have B3, C5 challenging white's center, C4, and now you could go for something like E5, and then after D captures, pawn captures, you could simply continue developing, go for a queen trade. But here, black decides to play D5. It seems like a waste of a tempo, but such is the life of a player wielding the black pieces. You are bound to lose a tempi or two here and there. Bishop to b2, fianchettoing the other bishop as well. C captures on d4, knight captures on d4, and this is only move 9. This position has been reached a few times before, but the move played in this game, e5, is a new move, and now we have a completely new game on our hands. We have knight to f3, and now e4. Forcing the knight to choose where it's going. If you go knight e5, you will immediately lose the knight to g4. This unfortunate pin will be favoring black. You cannot capture due to bishop captures on g2. On b2 also the rook will fall. So after e4, we have knight to d4. And here, black has a couple of very nice options. He can simply continue developing, either go developing with the light square bishop. You can always capture on c4, you can go knight a6, but black actually decides to go for e3. A very nice pawn sacrifice, so that if accepted, let's say f captures on e3, you will go knight to g4, put pressure on this e3 pawn, your bishop comes alive, but after queen to c1, you will for the moment defend the e3 pawn, but it's a very committal position for white, not at all enjoyable. So after e3, we have f3. White decides to not capture the e3 pawn, and we can already consider this a small victory for black. D captures on c4, and now comes knight to a3. And here black can't grab another pawn with pawn captures, but after queen captures, white will get a lot of development, and black really hasn't even started developing his pieces yet, so not something you want to do. So black decides to hinder white's development by giving back the pawn the way black wants to. C3. And okay, bishop captures on c3, and now comes queen to e7. Developing the queen with a nice attack on the knight on a3. After the pieces are developed, maybe even this rook can come into the game via an attack against the dark square bishop. Knight to c4. Now the knight is no longer attacked. We have rook to d8, and now comes queen to c1. Getting the queen out of the d file that is occupied by the rook on d8, but also putting pressure on the e3 pawn. knight to d5, attacking the bishop on c3, bishop moves, we have bishop back to b2, and here the best course of action for black is to go knight d7 to b6, perhaps trade off this knight on c4, and then try and develop. Once this bishop is developed and this rook comes to c8, black will be perfectly fine. But here black plays b6, opens up this diagonal, and it seems to be giving white a bit too much. White immediately opens up his bishop. We have f4. Now the bishop comes alive. Bishop to b7, countering the bishop on this very nice diagonal. And here white again has a couple of very nice options. You can either proceed with f5. There's very little black can do about this, but we have a different move. We have knight to e5. And now, while capturing the knight is a possibility, you don't want to give up your very strong dragon here for this knight on e5, as you will have very little to oppose white's dark square bishop with. And also, if you don't do it, then you have to do something about it, as knight to c6 with a nice fork is coming. So here queen to e8 is played. We have rook to d1, and here again you could go for something like bishop captures on e5. In this position, this would have most likely be the best course of action, as this knight is now too powerful. After captures, you will continue developing, bring the rook over to c8, and white will be better, but you will still be in the game. Here, after rook to d1, we have knight to a6, and now comes knight d to c6, attacking the rook on d8. And here again, the best course of action is to capture the knight. Bishop captures. Now, of course, you don't have time to capture the rook because of bishop captures here, but you also could do it. Sorry about that. I don't know why I hit that. After rook to d1, knight a6, we said rook to c8 was played, but now after this, the best course of action, yeah, sorry about that, we said bishop captures on e5. But now after knight captures on d8, you get bishop captures here, queen captures, and now after rook captures on d8, black would be excellent in this position. So in fact, after bishop captures on e5, you would have to capture back. Knight captures on e5, and it's not something you want to do. Now you don't have your very strong dragon, but it's still better than anything else you could play. Let's say you develop the rook, attack the queen, knight now goes back, knight c4, and the game continues. But here, after knight d to c6, we have rook a to c8. And it seems like a very reasonable move, bringing this rook into the game with tempo. Not with tempo, but, well, it kind of is with tempo, as the knight is attacked twice. You're threatening to now capture the knight on e5, which is the only useful defender to the knight on c6. So it seems like a very nice move, but it's in fact the losing move. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the series of moves that win the game for white. As usual, I'll give you a couple of seconds for you to decide whether you want to do it or not. So, feel free to do it. I'm just going to have a nice sip of water here. So, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. You are the man or a woman, as 3.5% of my subscribers are women. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the move played in the game was bishop captures on d5. For fun, we're just going to show, if you decided to play knight captures on d8, it's also playable, but it's much more complicated, and it's not at all clear if you will win the game. Because after a series of forceful exchanges, rook captures the queen, the most obvious one, knight captures on b7. And now after bishop captures, rook captures, and bishop captures back, queen to c6. But of course you will save the knight. Bishop captures on d5, attacks the queen, also protects the knight after the queen moves. But then after queen to c2, attacks the rook, rook moves, and now knight to b4, attacks the bishop. White is still better, and white is up material here, of course, but it's still hard to play. Most likely white will win this in some 100 more moves, but it's not the best move in that position. After rook a to c8, the move that Alvar, Alonso, Rosell played is bishop captures on d5. And it's really a wonderful move, because what do you do here? If you try something like rook captures on d5 to remove the defender of the c6 square, it doesn't work. Simply rook captures, and now after you captures here, the knight can capture back. It's not a problem. Simply knight captures on c6. So what black did here, instead, bishop captures on e5. Makes sense. The knight is pinned, you cannot recapture with the knight, and also you have just removed the defender of the c6 knight. But this is what white had in stored. Bishop captures on f7. This was the idea. Capture on d5, and only then capture on f7. And now, if you play queen captures on f7, then you get rook captures on d8 with check, so the knight will no longer be pinned. Rook captures, and now you'll just snatch the rook and attack the queen. And after bishop captures, queen captures, you will have to move the queen, queen d7, and now after knight captures, queen captures, you will have a rook against the knight, and with the black king wide open, it's a completely winning game for white. So, after bishop captures on f7, king captures on f7 was played, and now comes queen to c4 check. Another wonderful move, as it really shows how colorful a game this is. If you block with the queen, queen e6, then you get knight captures on e5 with check. You cannot capture with the queen, well, or would you want to, but you can still, as the queen is pinned. So I have to remove the king, king e7, bishop a3 check, king moves back. Now you get rook captures on d8, another very nice move, and after the queen is captured, now you go rook to f8 check. King to g7, and now b captures on c4. And there is a very little you can do here. Rook to f7 is coming. You can try to bring the piece into the game, but still captures, rook f7. And now you will either have to give up this queen for the rook and the knight, and still you will be left with a rook against the bishop, or you will move the king and then suffer to rook captures on b7. And with two rooks and the knight against the queen, white will have an easily winning game. So after queen c4, we have king to g7, trying to escape, but now comes bishop captures on e5 with check. King to h6, and now comes rook captures on d8 finally. This is of course with an attack against the black queen. Rook captures, knight captures on d8, and now we have queen captures on d8. This is move 27, and it was in this position that French Grandmaster Maxime Lagarde resigned the game. Why did he resign? It's white to move. White can simply play queen to f7, and it is all over. There's very little you can do against, well, there is nothing you can do against queen to g7 check, nor is there a way to block it. One possible idea is queen d5, try and offer an exchange here and hope white doesn't have a mating attack so you can deliver checkmate yourself. But white does have a mating attack. Queen g7 check, king has to move, now comes queen captures here, king has to move, queen captures here, king has to move, and now either queen to h5 or f5 will be checkmate. So yeah, after queen captures on d8, black resigned without even waiting for white to make a move. Which is, I don't know, it's a good thing, but also maybe if it's your game, maybe you just want to wait for white to make a move, because it was not once in chess history that white made like a terrible blunder and in a completely winning game. So perhaps, you know, it doesn't cost you anything except, you know, maybe it's annoying to wait for your opponent to make a move in a winning position, but still it's possible for you know, a mistake to happen. But yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. And after 10 rounds of the Sunway Sitges tournament, in that very nice place, we've already shown it plenty of times, but there you have it, just in case you haven't seen it. It's, like we said, a very wide photo, so I can't show it in its entirety, so we do have to use the special dragging effects. After 10 rounds, Alvar, Alonso, Rosell won the tournament with 8 points out of 10, with a lot of other players to follow with 7.5 points, like Dmitry Andreikin, Ernesto Inarkiev, and Vasily Ivanchuk, and a few more others. I think Sasikiran also, and yeah, I don't know who else was there, but I think there were like 7 players with 7.5 points. So quite a convincing victory, and I chose this game since it's really nice and features a very nice ending sequence. But yeah, do be sure to check out the Magnus rap song. It will be the first thing you will see in the description below. I would like to thank Cecil Cook, James Norwood, Celine Koldu, Adriel Victoria Lopez, and Martin Shvea for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with some more interesting content. Thank you all, and I'll see you soon.